Hello, good morning. Welcome, everyone. This is Nizam from the EA Global Summit team. Thanks for joining the EA Global Summit 2021. And this session will be by Tom O'Reilly, the Chief Operating Officer of Spark Systems Private Limited Australia. And he'll be presenting an introduction to Enterprise Architect 16 and all the latest from Spark Systems in the last year. Just a small note that we'll be muting all the participants throughout the session, and if you have any questions during the session, you might use the chat window here, or please join the team session for which the link has been shared to you previously, and I'll be sharing it once again in the chat window during the session too. Thanks once again for your interest, and I'll pass it to Mr. Tom, who will be preceding the session. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you for that, Nizam. Do I have the ability to share my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just get this set up. Just need to change it to my other screen so I can show you my other stuff.
That is correct.
There we go.
Yes,
Beautiful.
you're able.
Awesome. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining my session here today. Thank you very much to Nizam and his team for setting up another great conference. Today I'll be speaking about all the things we've been doing over the last 12 months in regards to working on EA16 and other sort of stuff we've been doing in the industry. So a little bit about us, the obligatory marketing slides. Who we are at Spark Systems. We produce a piece of software called Enterprise Architect and other relating tools around visual modeling. We first released in the year 2000, so we've had just over 21 years worth of commercial development going to the software now, which is pretty cool from our perspective. We have approximately just over 1 million paid users worldwide. So that's users who have pulled out their credit card, bought a license, and are or have been happily using the software. So appreciate everyone's support over the last 21 years in that regards. So what do? We produce software for designing and specifying complex systems for anyone in the organization, regardless of whether you're a systems engineer, an enterprise architect, a manager, a developer, a tester, a DBA, anyone in your organization who wants to share information with each other while working on complex projects. That's what our tool suite does. So we are in pretty much every industry you can think of with that sort of broad description. Main ones being aerospace, aviation, government, utilities, health is a really big one as well. Standards development is also quite large. All of these organizations in these industries have software projects that they need doing internally and stuff. So that's why we are useful to those organizations. So Spark Systems in the last sort of year and a half, as a lot of organizations have become basically a remote workforce. So almost the entire company has been working from home since February last year when everything went down around the world. We do have 1 or 2 staff that go in to keep servers running on a daily basis, but short of that, the 30 or 40 of us have all been remotely working. So it's all development, all sales, support, marketing, etc. Have been working remotely. To keep this running, the ProCloud server has been key to keep us all organized, and we found a lot of companies around the world have found the same thing. Those who have been, say, using Enterprise Architect within their organization suddenly have to become remote workers. And a lot of them, it was just as simple as installing a ProCloud server or even exposing their ProCloud server through a VPN, connecting the end users from home, and they can continue working as they were in the office. So that's been a really big bonus for us and a lot of customers from that perspective. So the fun stuff, what's new in version 16? A lot of interesting things. So hopefully I don't take up too much of your time, but I would like to touch base on a lot of these things. There are a lot of auxiliary and ancillary presentations coming up over the next 3 days that will deep dive into a few of these areas, and I can point them out as we go through, but this will definitely be just an overview of what we have coming. So running at the dot points there, we have new file-based repositories coming, so we'll dive into that first. New ways to connect to your databases, new options for expanding EA as a platform into different ways and different functionalities. Spreadsheets inside EA, which is kind of weird and interesting and cool. Enhancements to the UI to help navigate the model and get started quickly, and a whole bunch of other things as well. So let's take a look. So the new standard file-based repositories that we have coming are QEA and QEAX files. They are designed for your get started users or your get started projects. So your basic personal file-based versions of Enterprise Architect. The QEAX files are designed to have a little bit of team-based work in there, but only designed for smaller work groups. So they are mini repositories. So they're not designed for your full-scale, large corporate models. They're designed to get up and running quickly and start using Enterprise Architect. So they're built on SQLite, so the open source proven and secure database format, and they're compatible with both 32 and 64-bit versions of Enterprise Architect, and more on that later. They're the simplest entry point to get up and running. They basically will replace the EAP and EAPX files that we have moving forward, depending on what software technology you're using. They do have support for basic replication and also for simple shared model access. If you put it on, say, a local file system or something, the QEAX files have a limited form of multi-user access there. So the summary, out of the box, Enterprise Architect repository for the QEAX files. They're lightweight, they're serverless, basic replication supported, and support for small workgroups for the QEAX files. We will support migration from EAP to EAPX files to QEA or QEAX files, and there's a built-in migration tool into Enterprise Architect 16 that will allow that. And that will allow you to port your EAP files into a 64-bit compatible QEA or QEAX. Reading between the lines there, EAP files won't be supported in Enterprise Architect 64-bit, and that's mainly because there are no 64-bit JET drivers that are available there. So a technology update has had to happen. While we're on the topic of databases and repositories, there is a new simplified way of connecting to database repositories using a native connection method. So this works for both 32-bit and 64-bit versions of Enterprise Architect. Previously, if you wanted to do a direct database connection with EA, you would need to install the correct ODBC drivers or OLEDB drivers on your system. You would have to match that to the exact version of the database you had. You would have had to do that for every machine in the organization that's doing a direct database connection. So it's quite a bit of overhead and quite a bit of work. Obviously, the ProCloud server does alleviate that somewhat, where you can have that ODBC driver on the ProCloud server, match it up, and then connect to it via the HTTP connection. However, for both EA and the ProCloud server, it now supports a native connection to the databases. And what does that look like? So it's just basically a simple screen here. Pick what database you're going to be using, enter the server, the port, the name, username, password, etc. Give it a test. Once it works, hit OK and go, and then that's all you have to worry about. No need to worry about any of those drivers. We have a new style of diagram, very akin to, say, the custom style diagram, for those who are familiar with that at the moment. So that's a diagram properties based setting. And this one is for grid style diagrams. It's pretty useful, pretty cool. I've been using them for the last sort of 4 to 5 months to manage my local repository on a daily basis. And you can use it to build spreadsheets inside your models. You can use it for dashboards if you have any charts or anything you'd like organized neatly. The one I use it for primarily is for my homepage. So when I log into the model, I have a lot of nav cells, I have a lot of elements that link off to other places, lists of things I need to do in a day, and I can have that all laid out in a nice grid style on my home screen. So it's a powerful way to organize, medium to large sets of information from that perspective. It automatically constrains elements to a cell. So you have rows and columns, and then you create a new element on the diagram, and it will be sized accordingly to fit into that cell. And eventually you can build up that sort of grid as you see fit. So the row and column sizes are configurable for that, so you can make them as large or as small as you wish. And you can have optional row and column headers as well. So imagine in a spreadsheet you have all your letters across the top and numbers down the side, so you can do cell references like A1, B2, or you can have that in these grid style diagrams as well. To accompany that, we have actually implemented new API calls, so you can call those cells by grid position if you wish. And if you integrate that in with the next thing we're going to talk about, scriptlets, then you can do some pretty cool things as far as automation, visualizations, and updates to those elements that you have. So the scriptlets, or the scriptlet elements, they're designed to bring your diagrams to life. They give a dynamic view or a dynamic change to your diagram as it loads or as you run it. So on the fly, you can customize the appearance of your diagrams and elements on that, text that's available inside those elements or diagrams, the tag values of those elements or diagrams, and other properties as well. So imagine you might have an accounting system or an IT system that has time or value associated with that in your tag values, and you might be displaying information on the diagram to give you a representation of that. Every time your diagram loads, it can recalculate, say, the cost of running your servers or the time a server has been up and running, and display that on the diagram. So there's no need to refresh, there's no need to run that script manually. It all just does that for you automatically. So to create one of these things, you can just drag and drop it from the toolbox, just not straight onto a diagram. It's controlled by JavaScript. So once you put it onto your diagram, you can double click, open it up, and it has a whole bunch of code editors there that you can use to write within JavaScript to change that. So you can edit the scripts as required, and then EA will do the rest. So once it's up and running, EA will run that every time it loads, and away you go. The cool thing about it is that diagrams can support multiple scriptlets. So you can have multiple levels of scriptlets on any diagram to do various different things. But also too, your scriptlets, because they're model-based, are reusable. So you can reuse them on many different diagrams. If you need to share them with colleagues, you can have them in shared directory, shared files. You can upload them to RAS servers for distribution if you want to have a managed set of scriptlets that are published, so to speak. But all the wonderful things you get from model-based information, you can use with scriptlets as well. So what are some of the uses of the scriptlets? If you combine it with the grid style diagrams plus the scriptlets, you can create your own spreadsheets. I've got an example up on the next screen, but just imagine you have full control now over every element in every cell of a grid style diagram. All of a sudden now you can control it exactly as you would a spreadsheet, which is kind of cool. You can update the grid style diagrams by cell reference. So these scriptlets then can target individual cells based on what your code would say, and change the color, change the format, change the font, change the properties, etc., etc. You can apply those visual changes to elements, tag values. You can validate model elements as well. So you can use them for diagram validations. So you can write your own set of rules. You might be looking for elements that have spaces in the name, and that's not allowed. So you might create one of these things, and then next time the diagram loads, it'll flag and say, hey, look, this has a space in its name and it might color the element red or something like that. You can use it to populate your tables. So if you have a table of data, EA and the scriptlets can be used to edit that. Render graphics, covered the color elements via rules, etc. So here's an example that actually ships with Enterprise Architect. So it comes in one of the model patterns. So we have rows and columns of numbers, and you can see there that we've used a scriptlet then to color the top row, so the item January, February, March, etc. We've used the scriptlets in the totals column on the right-hand side there to sum up the values of all those cells on the horizontal. And we've also used it to format the data in that last column as well to be a dollar amount. So there's lots of stuff you can do there. So each cell in this grid is just a text element. So if you right click or put a spacebar on your diagram, go to common elements, text is one of those. But it's sort of gone from a non-programmable field to something that you can start manipulating and changing. Scriptlets are executed before the diagram is displayed, and it's determined on the Z order on the diagram on which scriptlet runs first. So remember I said you can have multiple scriptlets per diagram. The order that they execute is governed by the Z order. So you can actually order them up to run sequentially in an order that you pick. I think I've covered the rest of that. Well, with model patterns, grid style diagrams, yes, perfect. So because of that, we've moved the diagram properties. We've moved the Z order properties into the diagram properties tab, and that just gives you quick access to reorder scriptlets and other model elements as well. So if you're building up a multi-layered diagram, it's always nice to have full control over the Z order. So that's just been moved into the properties as a quality of life change. As hinted to earlier on, Enterprise Architect now will ship in full 64-bit support. We'll have both the 32 and 64-bit versions of Enterprise Architect available. And it will be fully compatible with 64-bit database drivers if you are using them. So if you're currently using a 32-bit version of EA, you decide to update to 64-bit and your drivers stop working, just remember you need to use the 64-bit drivers for that. The advantages of a 64-bit EA, a lot of the memory stuff associated with that, like any 64-bit application. So you can handle larger reports for generation, larger generation of XMI and import operations, supports for large diagrams for export and save, etc., etc. Just like the database drivers, add-ons as well. If anyone has any add-ons out there for Enterprise Architect that they maintain, they'll need to ensure that they have checked and rechecked their work with the 64-bit versions as well, because that will be different. Okay, a few of the UI changes that we've had for Enterprise Architect for version 16 coming out. One of the main ones, another quality of life one, is the start page enhancements. So we've created a little tab section down here that has a lot of the things that you might do when you're first getting into a project. So you might be able to open up your existing projects, creating from patterns. So we have a whole library there of 1,000 base model patterns to get started from. I mentioned scriptlets as one of them. But if you're in any industry, there are starter patterns there for systems engineering, for requirements, for business, etc., etc. You might want to start by just adding a simple diagram from a specific package. Or if you want to do something a bit more complex, you might be able to pull up one of our guidance documents. Now, if you haven't seen our process guidance diagrams, they're basically diagrams designed to help you step through larger tasks. So it might be things like how to install a ProCloud server with a database. It might be how to generate documentation, and it gives you a list of checkboxes and useful help links to reference when trying to self-educate through those processes. Next change we made for EA also comes from the necessity of working remotely, is auto refresh diagrams. So auto refresh diagrams allow us to collaborate when designing diagrams together. So traditionally, for those who have worked in a team environment, you have a shared model, might be over a ProCloud server, you might be on the other side of the world. However, if you are working on the diagram, you effectively have lock control over that, even if the diagram isn't locked. And what that means is once you've changed a diagram, it is locked in for everyone else viewing that diagram. They'll get a prompt up saying, hey, looks like this diagram's been modified by somebody else. EA will keep this diagram locked for you until you refresh it, get those changes in, and then you can start editing from there. And that's just a little built-in safeguard that stops you from overriding someone else's changes if you're changing exactly the same diagram at exactly the same time. However, if you have a scenario where you are on a Zoom session with 30 of your colleagues and you're trying to develop and create a diagram in a collaborative nature, then auto refresh diagrams allows you to do that. So what that allows you to do is to set auto refresh diagrams on, and then the diagram is locked for all users. And then one user can then take the token for editing, say, okay, I'm going to now edit this diagram. For everyone else watching that diagram, it will still remain locked. However, all the changes that one person has will be automatically updated for all the users. So no pop-ups anymore. And it's useful for a session like this, where we have 70 people online. I'd like to do some diagramming. Everyone else would like to contribute as well, but we don't want to step on each other's toes. So real-time distributed and dynamic modeling environment. If you don't do it over a chat session, you can use the other collaboration features in EA, like chats and discussions and reviews and etc., to create that shared modeling environment. So worth having a look at if that is something that you do within your organization. The CodeMiner, stepping into, or back into the programming and development side of Enterprise Architect as an IDE. So the CodeMiner has been given a really big beef up with version 16. It effectively allows you to scan and analyze an entire code base, whether it's in to build up a dictionary and a list of what you have contained within your code. So what methods you have, what operations you have, what parameters you have, etc., etc. To do this, Enterprise Architect uses a grammar. So whether it's one that we supply or one that you can write yourself. I think by default we include C#, C++, and Java. And then you have the option of writing your own to support other code bases as well. What it does is sucks in your code into Enterprise Architect and builds up a searchable and queryable result set, useful for doing things like refactoring your code or creating IntelliSense for your code as well. It uses the MFQL query language to search and inspect your code, so it depends on what you want to build up, and it is super quick. The example I was showing last week was going through EA's 9.7 million lines of code, and it returned every instance of this method that was being called in less than 1 millisecond, and that was by a person who was sitting about 7,000 kilometers away from where the server was. So over a remote connection, they still had this blistering fast result to analyze the code base of EA, which was really, really cool. So what do we use it for? Well, out of the box, we use it for IntelliSense and refactoring. So the IntelliSense is when you're coding, you might type a method name or an object name, hit a full stop period or whatever, and then you'll get a list of everything that comes up that, whether it's attributes, operations, etc., that you can use based on your code. And that builds this up on the fly with the particular methods and stuff you're writing yourself. The CodeMiner, the set that it builds up can be exposed as a service either locally or over a network, which is really important, obviously, when working in a team development environment like we are at Sparks. And it basically means that the second that we build Enterprise Architect on one machine, then we can export that to the service, and then everyone in the organization has up to the second IntelliSense information on all the custom code that we have written. So a note from one of the developers says that every time we build EA, it immediately becomes available to all devs for IntelliSense via that service. Other things we use it for is to check, run queries to check for complexity. So if we have a set of rules that we know that form complex sets of code, and we know that that code takes longer than normal to run, then we can have patterns and identify those areas and try and work them out before putting them into the code base. So all these tools are designed to help keep the development of EA and EA itself running snappy. Keeping the theme of remote development and remote work, we've implemented new and expanded collaboration tools inside Enterprise Architect 16. So things like real-time chat have been added. I think that's been around for a couple of releases now. I think it was first appeared in 15.2 last year. However, it has had a lot of improvements since then. We have the ability now in chat to share files and images in real time, even if those files and images are not part of the model. So you can pick them up off the file system, send them via the built-in chat to another one of your team members, and they can look at that file directly, even if it's not stored in EA. We have personal model-based diaries. So on a daily basis, if you need to keep track of your work and your thoughts and where you're up to, we have diaries based on users from that perspective. We have the model-based mail, which is an oldie but a goodie, absolutely invaluable to us here at Sparx for communicating between team members, alerting to people diagrams to look at, and for further more verbose conversations that you wouldn't do in a chat. We have element journals. So we have journals not just for a person, but for individual elements in an Enterprise Architect. So every element inside EA can have a journal associated with it, as well as formal element discussions as well. So if there is a particular element that a team is working on, then a whole bunch of people can start a formal discussion on a single element and just work their way through that one. We have the formal reviews as well, which have been very invaluable for team-based work. And there's been a whole lot of enhancements to the review section for Enterprise Architect in version 16 as well. So just a bit of a screenshot just to break up the monotony of dot points. So you can see here we have an example of the chat where a file has been sent. So there's a LibreOffice file there and an image that's been sent between two of the team members. Those things you could probably store as an internal document storage inside EA, but in this case they've just been added and sent via chat to each other. We have a whole lot of management features around that, so you can manage all the files that you received in a chat, whether it's been today or all chats of all time. So if there's something you need to go back and look up that someone has sent you, you can do that. On the back-end side, it actually stores the file locally in your temp folder. So even if that file has been deleted from the original source, then you still sort of have a copy there that you can access. So it could be quite useful for backup purposes from that perspective. If you'd like to know more about the way we use the collaboration tools and the way we operate here at Sparx Systems, especially when we are all working remotely, I highly suggest checking out Scott Hebbard's presentation tomorrow. All the local times are up in front of me there, or you can find it in the EA Global Summit list as well. So Scott will go through and just discuss how we work on a day-to-day basis, how the developers work, how marketing works, support, etc., and how we use EA to stay in touch while all working remotely. So I suggest checking that out. Back to Enterprise Architect 16. A few areas around model governance have been updated in EA, specifically around auditing, user permissions, and team collaboration as well. So from an auditing perspective, we've gone through and rewritten a lot of the back end of the auditing stuff, so it's much more faster now. So, which is always a good thing. Obviously, auditing is quite an intensive process for for tracking and maintaining, so any sort of optimizations there are always good. Another handy feature with that now is you can also locate model changes for a specific time frame. So if you know something happened last Thursday and you had auditing turned on for that package, then you can go back to that particular time frame and see what has changed there. So just 2 quality of life updates for auditing. Restrictions. With Enterprise Architect, a lot of the security works around permissions. So, do you have permission to do XML import export? Do you have permission to create diagram, etc., etc.? But what we found, there was a growing need for restrictions inside Enterprise Architect from a permission-based area. So the restrictions that we've implemented in EA are typically around operations that will remove data, so deleting packages, doing XY imports over the top of other things, deleting diagrams, deleting elements, deleting connectors, deleting attributes, operations, etc., etc. Why are they useful? Well, it allows you now to set up a team environment where you have given permission to your team. They may not be as experienced modelers as what you are. You might be the head modeler for your team, but you've given them permission to create things, so they can do that in the way they go. But they might have been restricted to be able to delete something. We had a scenario from one of our customers where they had new modelers come into the organization. They didn't understand how the model and the diagrams work, where a model element can show up on many different diagrams. They might have a Visio background where if something's on the diagram, that is its home. And then they've deleted this element out of the model and it's removed itself from all diagrams and obviously caused harm to that model. So now to stop that scenario, you can give those users a restriction to delete. So they can create the package, their diagrams, they can start modeling their elements. They've realized they didn't need an element they've created. They can't delete it. They'll need to seek permission from someone who is maybe more familiar with the model to say, yes, it's okay for that element to delete. So just, again, another quality of life improvement for the team. So you don't have people negatively impacting your work there. So these apply to not just the elements, but as alluded to, XML imports, restores from baseline, and deleting baselines, because obviously the baseline restore can also cause a situation where you could have data loss as well. So for instance, someone decides to restore a baseline from a month ago over your current model, and then all of a sudden you've just lost a month's worth of work from that perspective. So that's why restrictions apply to them as well. These restrictions are regardless of any other permissions assigned. So you can't be assigned permissions to supersede a restriction. So restrictions are the be all and end all at the end of the permission run. So you might be an administrator and you can assign a restriction to an administrator to delete a package, and then they won't be able to delete that package until that restriction has been removed. So good for model governance. Team collaboration. Okay, so from the formal review perspective, we have expanded the ability for formal reviews to create formal review sets. So you can use a diagram nav cell now to add to a review diagram. So traditionally, to add an element to a review, you'd put it onto a review diagram, and then that element would be the focus, or that set of elements would be the focus of that review for your team. Now you can do that just by association with a nav cell. So you can include multiple different diagrams onto a single review just by including the nav cell onto that review diagram. We have updated the UI for the formal review section, so a lot more information at your fingertips now to get a grasp on what reviews are out and available. So you can filter reviews by discussion, approval, priority, recent replies, etc. You can see who the approvers are in a drop-down list, and multiple other things that are really cool there. So for example, we can see here we have a review diagram, and we have 3 different elements on those diagrams, and those 3 are all nav cells. So you can see here that this nav cell responds to this entire diagram. So all of these elements will be part of that review. You can see here we've got 1, 2, 3 elements, nav cells. So 3 entire diagrams added. So there could be multiple different elements as part of that one there. Also from the review menu, or the review element context menu, with a few UI tweaks to give you quick access to test management, to the resource management, and to the maintenance window. So they're really the 3 things on top of a review that you might want to see. So with a review, you might want to go into your tests to see who's been running tests and what the status of them are, who's been assigned to those resources to get them done, the elements to get them done, and then the maintenance window also to check what's happening there. And that's just right clicking on one of these guys, getting the context menu out, and there's new items in this thing here. Profile updates in Enterprise Architect 16. NEAM 5. So we have implemented the NEAM 5 reference model. Just like NEAM 4 and the support for NEAM 3 we had, you'll have the starter model patterns there that will be available to bring into your model. It has all the latest standards-based domain-specific terms that come in with NEAM 5, and it allows you to build common vocabularies for information exchange between your organizations. So just a quick overview of NEAM being the National Information Exchange Model, designed for organizations to be able to create schemas for information exchange between each other, having a common vocabulary. So we've done a lot of videos on these in the past, so I suggest you check them out if that's something that you're interested in. SysML2. This has been a pretty interesting development by the OMG for SysML2. They're stepping away from a UML underlying core for SysML2. It is still very much in development at the OMG from that perspective. Our goals at Sparks for 3A16.x is full and transparent support for the user interface, documentation, and more for SysML2. We plan on implementing all of the SysML2 API via the ProCloud server, and we'll just continue to develop that as more updates come out of the OMG. ProCloud server, updates to the ProCloud server. Obviously that will have the 64-bit support as well. It'll have support for the native database connections, so no more ODBC drivers, or just define the ODBC DSNs. So a few quality of life updates there. We've also included the ability to do client whitelists for the ProCloud server. So what this allows you to do is, if you have a scenario where security is paramount in your organization, but you have no choice but to open up your ProCloud server to the wider internet, then you can lock that down by only accepting calls and connections on specific and predefined IP addresses. If someone tries to access your ProCloud server that is not on the whitelist, then that will obviously not connect for them. So just added security for the ProCloud server in specific environments there. While we're on the topic of the ProCloud server, Proliberate 4 is on the horizon. So that has had a total redesign of the back end to make it a more seamless and smoother user experience. The Proliberate team have worked very hard over the last 12 months to really get that up to speed. Very quick, quite fast in compared to previous versions, and obviously that as web technologies get better, we've been building sort of more stuff into that to help there. It's had a lot of focus on scalability and security. So there are a lot more customers out there who are requesting and asking for hosted solutions from a ProCloud server EA and Proliberate perspective. So Proliberate, we've focused on making it more auto scalable, have a Dockerized architecture there so we can spin those up quite quickly as required. and obviously cloud ready, so built from the ground up to utilize the best cloud deployment practices. So quick peek at what's been added. So as I mentioned, a new clean and slick user interface helps you obviously navigate the model and the different areas you're trying to get access to. We've built in powerful visualizations and what-if analysis to really impress those stakeholders there. It allows you to look at what if you change this element or this part of the model, what areas are affected, who do we need to contact, and the like there. We've revamped the discussions and reviews section to be much more usable as well. Obviously have better team communication built into them too. We've added all-in-one informative information pages, so you can select any element that you have within your model and then view things like the instant traceability view to say what it's connected to, where it's coming from, what types of connections it has, where is it used, what diagrams, etc. What are the properties, the details of that element, and then who created it, where's the documentation for it, etc., etc. So just a snapshot of anything we have in the model there with that web-based view. I've included new powerful visualizations, so new charts and updates to existing charts, just better ways to slice and dice and present information to stakeholders much more easier. And again, if you want to know more information about that, I highly suggest checking out Madhav's presentation later today. Looks to be in about 12 hours from now. So jump on that, and Madhav will do a deep dive through all the things, changes and updates that Prolaborate 4.0 will be bringing to the table. Again, on ProCloud Server Technologies, we've added an integration to Polarian. This one's been an interesting one actually, because we used the custom integration framework. So instead of building the integration in like we have for things like ServiceNow and the others, we have used the custom integration framework that we expose and allow our customers to access. So it serves as a really good example and a really good starting area for anyone looking to do their own custom integrations to various applications. It obviously being built into the ProCloud server, the advantage is that as soon as the integration is done there, it's available to every member of the team who connects to that ProCloud server. So there's no need or reason to have an integration installed on each and individual machine. It's a really good architecture technology to allow that information to come from anywhere. So from a Polarian specific focus, we support things like the requirements and the live documents that come from there. And using the integration features, we can create local elements in EA from Polarian items. So we can create a representation of a Polarian requirement inside an Enterprise Architect. We can provide WebEA links back into Polarian. So if the Polarian users would like to see how their requirements are being used in a modeling environment, how they're being used in context, then they can simply click on that link and bring up a WebEA view of that. We can view the external properties from the Polarian element, and that's in real time as well. So your element inside Enterprise Architect, EA via the PCS knows that it's linked to Polarian. You can click on a little external properties tab there and see all the information that's coming from the outside. You can contribute to and view the external discussions. So inside Polarian, they have a discussion system, and you can view and contribute to that via the EA discussion area as well. So it really creates an environment where the EA modelers and the Polarian users are working hand in hand on a project, working in the same direction, but still working in their own environments and using the tools that they're comfortable with and tools that they prefer to use. So it really does create a nice symbiotic relationship between EA and other applications using the integration system that we have there. So I suggest checking that out. Again, still on the ProCloud server, WebEA has also been given an update to its UI. It's 3 new tabs have been created across the top for model, collaborate, and search, and they all operate independently of each other. So for instance, you might go to the search tab, run a search, and then double click on an element to populate the model inside the model tab. If you then switch back to the search results, your search results are still there. They haven't been blown away. They haven't gone back to the page and refreshed and have to do the search again, which you previously had to do in the current WebEA. So that's a nice quality of life update there. And also too, the Collaborate tab allows you to get your chat notifications, switch and respond, etc., between your model, search, and chat, all while staying in context and not losing your place there. We now support the model and user default diagram inside WebEA. So inside Enterprise Architect, you can set a model default diagram. So when you log into the model, that's what everyone sees as the starting page. Alternatively, you can have a user default diagram. So when you log in, you see your start page, which is customized to you. EA handles both of those things in WebEA. So WebEA will adhere to both those things. So you can log into WebEA, you can see your default diagram, or you can see a model default diagram if it's set. There have been improvements to the tablet and phone user interface improvements. So if you're looking at WebEA via a mobile device, then that's obviously a much nicer experience, as well as on the tablet as well. And here's a little slide deck for an example. So you can see here we've got model, collaborate, and search up the top. And if we switch through, we do a search, or the collaborate, sorry, for the chats, and then for the search as well. And they're all sort of kept in tune and independent of each other. Now, from a business perspective, that sort of ends the part on EA and PCS updates to the software. But on the business front, we've had a few changes as well. So Spark Systems is partnering with Sixth Force out of India. So for those who don't know, that's Nizam and his team, obviously the presenter today, to help us deliver timely and expert support at the remote location. So we've effectively doubled the size of our support team from that perspective. Those guys have especially Nizam has a long history with Spark Systems, being obviously an employee of Spark Systems back in the day. And so he brings to the table deep knowledge of EA and Spark suite of tools and technologies. So that's really cool from that perspective. They are also the authors of Collaborate as well. So the knowledge of the cloud technologies that Spark Systems has is quite up there for him and his team. So that will greatly improve the timeliness and interactivity of our support teams. That's been running now for the last sort of 5 or 6 weeks, and definitely seen an improvement on our side as far as the throughput of support we can deal with on a daily basis. We're also announcing Spark Systems Middle East. So that will be supporting the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, and Qatar. We have already seen a very, very strong demand for visual architecture tools in that region, and we're already servicing some very large clients there. So we feel with a permanent presence in the region, it just strengthens the support for the modeling community over there. So welcome to Spark Systems Middle East for that. So that is basically all I have for today. I do have a note from Jeff, which I'd like to read out, but I'll take any questions first, if any has any.
Thank you very much, Tom, for the wonderful session. This, is rightly the keynote session, and it's been really fantastic. There's been very active participation from a number of people. We've all been waiting for some updates for a year now. Thank you very much, and I'm really excited to see the real-time refreshing diagrams. I think that's gonna be really useful with the current era of Zoom and Teams and others. And also the model governance, which is something that would be incredibly helpful to roll out the EA practice to the wider teams. Yeah, we have a number of questions. I don't know if we have time for everything now, but we'll be posting in the Teams channel all these questions, and we'll request Tom, who has kindly accepted to be in the team for a while, to respond to your queries. But I have a few that I think we, if you can give it try now. So one of the questions was, how compatible will SQLite be with add-ins that accesses EAP via ODBC in the past?
So SQLite has undergone a lot of testing. We've had it implemented for about 5 or 6 months at the moment. It will be a complete drop-in replacement for EAPs. So if add-ins work at the moment, if you have a 32-bit add-in using 32-bit EA, then running SQLite, you shouldn't see any difference. You might even see a bit of a performance increase. If you're using 64-bit version of Enterprise Architect, then the add-on will need to be configured for 64-bit as well. But again, the QEA files will definitely support the 64-bit version of EA, where the EAP files will not.
All right, thanks, Tom. And the million-dollar question: when will it be released?
That's a very good question. So at the moment, we're looking to have a beta come potentially early next week. We're tidying up a few last things at the moment. So for anyone who would like to be notified for that and you're not already, please feel free to subscribe to our mailing list and we'll email you out the second the beta becomes available.
Okay.
So looking next week sometime.
Thank you, Tom. That's exciting. Again, we've got a whole raft of questions coming up, and it's more around the new database formats and patterns and everything that you mentioned about. In the interest of time, maybe I'll, we are already having these questions posted in the Teams channel, and we'll also have a recording of this session in which the answers to these queries will be available in the Sparks webinars page, will be available in the Sparks Systems YouTube channel. So there'll be a number of places where we'll be addressing this. Maybe we'll just take, maybe one more question, if you may like, Tom. The question is, will we be able to link the QEA with MS Access link tables? There's a lot of code in the Access database that is linked to both server and EAPX files. It's a question from Follow.
That's a very good question and something I'll probably need to defer to someone a bit more smarter than I am to answer.
Right, no problem. I think there'll be more on these, but these are exciting changes for sure. I'm really glad that you were able to cover the whole raft of things that is happening, and it's exciting to see the new Middle East coming up and the updated features in Pro Cloud Servers and Web EAs and Pro Elaborate. Thank you very much, Tom, for the wonderful session. And I request everyone to please join us in the Teams channel to continue this discussion with Tom. And we'll also have inputs from various other fellow practitioners to add value to it. There is still questions pouring, but we'll make sure we take care of all these questions, get them answered. You will be notified about the link to the webinar page or the YouTube page where all these questions are answered. Thanks once again from the organizing team side for your attendance, and thank you very much, Tom, for your participation.
Thanks. Should I read out Jeff's quote, or is it just on screen that?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, so I asked Jeff if you'd like to mention anything to the crew here, and this is what he came back with. So he goes, 21 years, a new version of Enterprise Architect about to go beta, another successful global summit underway, awe-inspiring milestones by any measure, and a great thrill for us here at Sparks. A big thank you to the huge contribution made by our staff, our partners around the world, and the ever-enthusiastic modelers that use Enterprise Architect and its associated tools and add-ons on a daily basis. Also, a special call out to Nizam and his team for all the hard work putting in this event together, especially in the challenging times we find ourselves in. Thanks to everyone for taking part, and I hope you all have a great virtual event. From Jeff.
Thank you. That's great from the founder himself. It's really nice to have a note from him, and thank you once again. I'm sharing the link to the team session once again, and the chat window. Request you all to please come on board to continue this discussion. So there are questions on Teams sign in. You could just log in as a guest. It's a Microsoft platform. If you have an Outlook account, that's fine. Otherwise, just log in as a guest and you'll be able to join the channel, please. If anyone is still finding difficulties joining the team session as a guest, please drop in your email in the chat window to us privately, and we will get you set up in Teams ASAP. Our team is ready to get you added to the Teams channel as well. Or please drop us a quick note on registrations at eaglobalsummit.com and we will get your account added to the Teams channel ASAP.